I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Another day and more hearings in the House of Representatives. These hearings where the MAGA Republicans, instead of focusing on how to improve our country, they want to hold these hearings regarding the outrage echo chamber machine that they create and spread their conspiracies. But look, the Democrats have done a very, very good job at these hearings of calling the MAGA Republicans out and really showing the contrast between the Democratic Party, which takes its job seriously, and the MAGA Republicans who just want to spread conspiracy theories, disinformation, and engage in performative fascism. So some of the main hearings today from the House Oversight and Accountability hearing, the MAGA Republicans called this one Ensuring Force Readiness, Examining Progressivism's Impact on an All-Volunteer Military. And the theme was that the woke military is creating a national security crisis, even though MAGA Republicans can't even define the word woke, and that there is literally no evidence to support that at all. The next hearing that we'll talk about from the House Oversight and Accountability hearing, the MAGA Republicans called this one The Consequences of School Closures, Intended and Unintended, where they blame governors for Donald Trump's mismanagement of the global pandemic. And then there is this one, which is called FDA Oversight Part 1, the Infant Formula Shortage, where they try to blame President Biden, even though the oversight that was supposed to be done was not done under the Trump administration, and the Biden administration took swift emergency action to solve the crisis. Because let's face it, crisis happens, and you need a leader who solves it and doesn't engage in performative fascist nonsense. So let's go to the committee that was dealing with ensuring force readiness. Here's MAGA Republican Paul Gosar saying that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, conspired with Nancy Pelosi and the Chinese government to overthrow Donald Trump. This is actually a leader in the MAGA Republican Party. Play the clip.
Committee room. Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, issued, quote, a stand down of the entire military in 2021 because he falsely believed the military is systematically racist. What an insult to our brave men and women. General Milley, instead of fulfilling his constitutional duty to serve Donald Trump, the duly elected president at the time, representing the voice of the American people, conspired with both Nancy Pelosi and foreign adversary, the CCP, on separate occasions to hatch plans to overthrow the sitting president of the United States. What insurrection, you say? The point of all these actions is clear. Cleanse the military of conservatives.
Here's Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin saying that the real issue here is not woke. It's that the military feels they're going to go broke. We need to pay our military better and provide more benefits and take that job seriously. Play this clip.
The Army fell short of its recruitment goals by 15,000 last year. Why has it become more difficult to recruit people into the military? Here's one theory. Potential recruits are not afraid of going woke. They're afraid of going broke. Pay and benefits are so low that the RAND Corporation estimates that more than a quarter, 26% of our military service members are food insecure, and 14% actually use food assistance programs like food banks to meet their family needs.
As these hearings were taking place outside, one of the main MAGA Republican leaders, Steve Scalise, was talking about how the main thing that he focuses on when there's a mass school shooting is prayer. Play this clip.
Yeah, the first thing in any kind of tragedy I do is as I pray for the victims, pray for their families. I really get angry when I see people trying to politicize it for their own personal agenda, especially when we don't even know the facts. There are facts coming out. It looks like the shooter originally went to another school that had much stronger security, and ultimately went to this school. Let's get the facts and let's work to see if there's something that we can do to help secure schools. We've talked about things that we can do. And it just seems like on the other side, all they want to do is take guns away from law-abiding citizens. Before they even know the facts, the first thing they talk about is taking guns away from law-abiding citizens. And that's not the answer, by the way. So why don't we, number one, keep those families in our prayers and see if there were things that were missed along the way. We've talked about the need to improve mental health in this country, and that's been a driver of a lot of these shootings as well.
Going back to these House of Representatives committees, here is Democratic Congressmember Maxwell Frost, again, saying that, what are we talking about here? Wokeness? Can we focus on what really matters, like raising the wages for our military? Play the clip.
Nothing. This is not an issue of wokeness. We're talking about the women in our military that are serving our country, defending our freedom, that deserve to not be assaulted in the workplace. And we, as members of Congress, need to look at how are we protecting them? How are we ensuring that the quality of life for our service members are better than it is right now? And I want to ask, when we're here talking about wokeness, where is the outrage on ensuring that we can raise wages of military members? 74% of our military budget goes towards contractors. Why are we not talking about that? Why are we not talking about what happened just last week on this committee in this room, where my friends on the other side of the aisle were gunning and going for telework, which military spouses disproportionately use to help support their household because the wages are not where it needs to be. So this is about politics, not about policy. It's not about things rooted in facts, and the facts show, there's no data that shows that wokeness is a part of the problems we're seeing in terms of recruitment. Thank you. I yield back.
And one of the things here that Congressmember Frost also points out is that diversity, inclusion initiatives, whatever you call it, since the draft was abolished, these initiatives, diversity, equality, it used to be supported by both political parties. It used to be bipartisan, but no, now that the MAGA Republicans have become full fascist, they use it as a political tool and then call the military woke. Play the clip.
I think it's really important to know that these efforts, when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and they've been under many names, have been part of the U.S. military ever since the draft was abolished in 1973. And these efforts traditionally have been supported by both Democrats and Republicans in Congress. But I think because now we're seeing that the politics is kind of shifting, and I guess woke is part of the Republican talking points now, we're having a hearing on this. I even heard somebody bring up, one of the witnesses, an unspoken rule on pressures of promotions can be based on quotas or DEI or et cetera. I think it's important to know 76% of active duty officers in the U.S. military right now are white. And so I highly doubt that there's an unspoken pressure that is pushing people to promote based on DEI, race, or et cetera. Our military has about 1.3 million active personnel. However, women recruits continue to climb. Men still make up 82% of our military. I think it's important to know that recent surveys have found that an estimate 21% of women in the military and about 4% of men have experienced unwanted sexual contact in the prior year.
And look, let's get back to the facts, of course. I mean, the Democrats, Maxwell Frost, Jamie Raskin, they're focused on the facts here. And so here you'll see Jamie Raskin, Congressmember Raskin, asking the witness, look, is there any support at all, any study at all that talks about wokeness? And you'll see the witness says, actually, the exact opposite. Play the clip.
Trust.
Well, I appreciate that. And I would just like to remark, as the ranking member did, that it's been an historical struggle to desegregate the Army, to let African Americans into the Army, to let women into the Army, to let gay people serve in the Army publicly. And at every point, there was a complaint that, oh, this is woke, or this is politically correct, or this is social engineering, or what have you. In fact, it's the process of democratization and making the Army look like the rest of society and allowing everybody to serve. Lieutenant General Barno, are there any studies which document the rather extraordinary claim being bandied about today that fear of wokeism or political correctness or what have you is actually depressing recruitment to the military?
I'm not aware of any studies that actually have any factual data that support that assertion. I also know that at least two service chiefs, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Berger, and the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General C.Q. Brown have both said that, wokeism is not, there's no such thing as not affecting military readiness. They see no evidence that this is a problem inside their two services. And I think that applies in the recruiting domain as well. But no, in terms of actual evidence, I've not seen that.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of the witnesses for their testimony and for their...
And here you have Marjorie Taylor Greene in one of these committee hearings saying, and this is a direct quote, you'll see it, that Canada wants to participate with Mexico's invasion of the United States. Like, these people are not serious people. Here, play the clip.
Senate. I'd also like to point out that it's extremely concerning and dangerous to the United States of America's national security that Canada's immigration policy allows Mexicans to travel to Canada without a visa. It seems that Canada wants to participate in Mexico's invasion of the United States because many of these Mexicans are obtaining an electronic travel authorization to fly into Canada, and they get that approved within minutes, and then they end up coming into the United States.
And look, I think we spotted MAGA Republican Ronnie Jackson. Play this clip.
I stand, but for too long, Mr. Speaker, we've handcuffed ourselves when it comes to our oil and natural gas potential. I stand before you today committed to unleash America's energy independence, but also to unleash America's energy dominance.
I don't know. Did Ronnie Jackson seem like he may have just had a runny nose, or what was going on there? All right, but I digress. Going to this is this Tennessee member of Congress, MAGA Republican Tim Burchett. This is what Tim Burchett said before these hearings started today, right outside of the Capitol building. He goes, "Yeah, there's nothing we can do in Congress when it comes to gun safety. There's nothing we can do. Like my dad told me, you're on your own."
Do you think there's any role for Congress to play in reaction to this tragedy? Obviously, this is your state now, but it's happened in every other state.
Oh, it's happening. It doesn't matter what state it's happening in. We're all Americans. It doesn't matter the color of their skin. They all believe red. They're believing a lot. I don't see any real role that we could do other than mess things up, honestly, because of the situation. It's like I said, I don't think a criminal's going to stop from guns. You can print them out on the computer now, 3D printing, and there's really, I don't think you're going to stop the gun violence. I think you've got to change people's hearts. As a Christian, as we talk about in the church, and I've said this many times, I think we really need a revival in this country.
And then he tried to, I guess, top that by giving this speech on the House floor about windmills. Play this clip of this MAGA Republican. Like, they echo Donald Trump, their cult leader, who just talks about windmills. Play the clip.
The Biden administration, and unfortunately the Democrats in Congress, keep pushing these Green New Deal style agendas. And honestly, Mr. Speaker, they just don't work. There hasn't been a new development in solar in over 20 years, and windmills are just what they are, windmills. The wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine in East Tennessee, and I'm sure that's the way it is across this great nation. And it's costing Americans way too much. We're done with all this nonsense, Mr. Speaker.
And now let's take a quick break to talk about our next partner, Fume. Cold turkey, it may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some weird mind voodoo from your wacky neighbor or some sketchy message board. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Now, not everything in a bad habit is wrong. So instead of drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. The first time I used Fume, I was shocked at how flavorful and fresh it tasted. Now, it's easy to hold and perfectly balanced and quite honestly, extremely fun to fidget with. The real wood material and sleek design definitely classes it up, and I feel pretty darn cool holding it. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 100,000 customers, and has thousands of success stories. And there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com and use code Meidas to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use code Meidas to save an additional 10% off your order today.
Going back to Democratic Congress member Jamie Raskin, just the facts, talking about how Donald Trump mismanaged the pandemic. And he's got a board that, let's just go through the facts. And by the way, when you watch this, sometimes we forget how much and how badly Donald Trump mismanaged the pandemic. If there was a real leader, millions of lives across the world would have been saved. And I think so many lives here in the United States would be saved if we had a real leader dealing with this situation. Play the clip.
Well, let's take PPE, for example. The Trump administration knew as early as January 2020 that the U.S. would not have enough PPE for the pandemic. Instead of taking steps to bolster domestic supply chains, Trump consistently dismissed the impact of COVID, repeatedly assuring the country that China and Xi were doing a great job and had everything under control, and famously predicting that the pandemic would be over by Easter. When it became clear that he was wrong and the country desperately needed PPE, Trump put his unprepared and unqualified son-in-law, Jared Kushner, in charge of obtaining PPE. Instead of working with procurement experts in the federal government, Kushner hired a handful of 20-something friends working in finance in New York, none of whom had any significant procurement experience in order to source and distribute PPE. Ms. Meiselas, you're a school nurse with the National Association of School Nurses, headquartered in Silver Spring, Maryland. So you understand the lengths to which schools went to keep kids safe throughout the pandemic. What did it mean for schools when they could not access the PPE they needed to protect the school children against the deadly virus in the spring of 2020?
The unavailability of sufficient PPE, Ranking Member Raskin, was a concern because of the healthcare workers, the school nurses who were working with students. Most immediately, with the healthcare that was happening throughout the nation, healthcare professionals were advised to use PPE. That needed to happen for the school nurses, number one.
Thank you. Well, let's look at testing. It took months for the CDC.
Then Jamie Raskin says, just look at testing. Play the clip.
One.
Thank you. Well, let's look at testing. It took months for the CDC to develop and distribute a reliable test. First, the Trump administration rejected a protocol test design offered by the World Health Organization in January of 2020. But the administration didn't take any action to incentivize test manufacturing here at home, leaving us defenseless and floundering. And when there were widespread design and contamination issues with the CDC's tests, the administration failed to provide public health centers with any guidance on how to proceed. This meant by the end of February 2020, the entire United States had conducted fewer than 500 tests compared to more than 65,000 in South Korea, for example. How did schools use testing as a tool allowing them to remain open during the pandemic when they had the tests?
Schools collaborated with local health departments, local health authorities to be able to offer testing, and some of them did that testing in school buildings, some did it in centers, testing centers.
All right, Mr. Chairman, in category after category, that administration got an F.
And by the way, when Jamie Raskin says, just look at testing, remember, one of the big things that Donald Trump has used to attack Ron DeSantis in the Republican primary is the idea that DeSantis was originally for testing, right? The MAGA Republican Party, one of their political positions is when there is a deadly virus, there shouldn't be testing. Like, just think about that concept, that's actually their political view. Don't test for pandemics. And if you criticize that, then the large media networks go, oh, I guess you're being very political. I'm not being political. When there are diseases, we should test for diseases. That should be a bipartisan issue. That shouldn't be controversial. But with these MAGA Republicans, we are living in a world where you have a political party that is a cult, that is not normal. And I refuse to be gaslit, and you refuse to be gaslit, that this MAGA Republican Party is an iota of normal. There is no normal here at all. Going to Jamie Raskin again, Jamie Raskin here says, okay, so your claim at MAGA Republicans that it was the fault of governors and not Donald Trump for his failure to control the plague? Seriously? Play this clip.
Beyond the million-plus Americans killed in this plague, the public health orders closing our public schools set our educational process back dramatically and undermined the academic, athletic, emotional, and intellectual progress of millions of children across the country. No one can seriously dispute that. And as an educator and a father, I've been horrified by what this plague and the nation's catastrophically ineffectual response to it have done to learning and education among young people. But was it the fault of the governors, Republican and Democratic, who closed the schools in the middle of this emergency? The superintendent struggling to contain this out-of-control pandemic? Was it the fault of the teachers on the front lines, at least 530 of whom died during COVID-19, according to the American Federation of Teachers? Was it the fault of the school children or young people under 18 themselves, more than 1,300 of whom themselves died of COVID-19? Or would it be the fault of the president who let the plague run loose and left the nation without a unified, serious plan for managing the crisis? A president who praised China's Central Communist Party and President Xi in their handling of the epidemic on 37 different occasions. Well, let's take PPE.
And Jamie Raskin says, you don't believe me? Just ask the person who ran the COVID response for Donald Trump. Play the clip.
For 5 minutes of questions.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. COVID-19 was a catastrophe for our country as Donald Trump presided over an historic debacle of a public health response. And you don't need to go to the American Medical Association or the American Hospital Association or American Nursing Association to conclude that Trump's lethal recklessness and lying led to hundreds of thousands of unnecessary deaths. You just have to go to Donald Trump's own COVID-19 advisor, Dr. Deborah Birx, who said that by undermining mass testing, not more aggressively coordinating vaccination and treatment, not seriously implementing mask mandates, the administration failed to save at least 130,000 lives, and probably a lot more than that. She testified, we probably could have decreased fatalities into the 30% less to 40% less range, which translates into the lives of several 100,000 Americans. That's Trump's own COVID-19 advisor. Beyond the million plus.
This is just absolutely horrific here. This is what Marjorie Taylor Greene says. She says, just watch, she says that men are better or boys are better at getting the job done. Who talks like this? Play this clip.
But the most devastating effect that I think that we all saw was the suicide increase in children. It's unthinkable to me that any child would commit suicide, and I know all of you on the panel agree with that. But here we saw suicide increase to 6,000 suicides among the ages 10 to 24. 51% increase in suicide attempts in girls ages 12 to 17. But boys were the ones that so tragically were actually getting the job done with the largest rate of suicide in an average of 8% increase. And so it's just completely devastating.
And by the way, who talks like this? People in death cults use that type of language. They are not the party of life. Are you kidding me? They are the party of big government trying to institute a death cult. That is what the MAGA Republican parties are. That's what they've become. And here, this is Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about, this is her view, that since there were school closures, that's created more trans people. Play the clip.
But another thing I'd like to point out that we haven't really talked about here is the gigantic impact on mental health of our kids while they were being forced to stay home, many of them alone by themselves, sitting in front of a screen for most of their waking hours as they were trying to educate themselves with online learning, which was a failure for many. But they were also spending their time on TikTok and Instagram, which are two poison pills for our children's minds. And since this time, these school closures, we've seen a dramatic increase in trans-identifying children, which is something that was not normal nor common many years before this. And I think that's completely devastating. But I'd also like to...
Right. I mean, it is utterly disgusting and despicable, and this is what they choose to talk about over and over and over again. You got Democrats talking about jobs. How do we help the military? How do we improve conditions? How do we make education affordable and accessible? And that's what Republicans are focused on. I mean, they are living in the most bizarre, fascistic echo chamber. And then here you have MAGA Republican Anna Paulina Luna on a hearing that's about baby formula. It's a hearing about baby formula. She wants to turn it into part of the whole MAGA Republicans' drive to try to ban mifepristone. And you'll see what she says. Well, mifepristone is the responsible for this. And then finally, the Democratic member of Congress, member Ballant, is just like, can we stop spreading medical disinformation here, please? And can we focus on infant baby formula? Can we focus on baby formula, please? Here, play this clip.
Thank you. Well, let's look at testing. It took months for the CDC to develop and distribute a reliable test. First, the Trump administration rejected a protocol test design offered by the World Health Organization in January of 2020. But the administration didn't take any action to incentivize test manufacturing here at home, leaving us defenseless and floundering. And when there were widespread design and contamination issues with the CDC's tests, the administration failed to provide public health centers with any guidance on how to proceed. This meant by the end of February 2020, the entire United States had conducted fewer than 500 tests compared to more than 65,000 in South Korea, for example. How did schools use testing as a tool allowing them to remain open during the pandemic when they had the tests?
Schools collaborated with local health departments, local health authorities to be able to offer testing, and some of them did that testing in school buildings, some did it in centers, testing centers.
All right, Mr. Chairman, in category after category, that administration got an F. And
what that just reminded me of, even though this didn't happen this week, it happened last week. I just want to show you this, where there was a hearing that had nothing to do with Hunter Biden's laptop at all. And you'll just see like the MAGA Republican just goes, and what do you think about Hunter Biden's laptop? Play this clip.
Mr. Wilcox, if a person lies on Form 4473 and is a user of unlawful drugs, you can get between 5 to 10 years for that. Is that correct? Is that my understanding?
No, I believe Congress changed the sentence last Congress.
What is that sentence now?
Up to 15.
Up to 15 years. Why hasn't Hunter Biden been prosecuted for the crime that he committed?
I'm not aware of the facts of that case and can't comment on it.
Okay, who do we talk to see why this case is not being prosecuted? I mean, he said very clearly in his book that he used drugs, he had a gun, at least a gun.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
State your point of order.
Totally irrelevant and not germane to this proceeding.
Sir, he's got his 5 minutes. Go ahead, continue.
Okay, so I understand why you do not want Mr. Wilcox to answer that question. It's very clear why you don't want, because there's a dual system of justice in America. That's what's going on right now, and everybody's talking about it across America. There's two standards of justice that are going on.
Yeah, and sorry, that clip was not from Tuesday, but I thought it was important to play for you because it just shows you like it is beyond parody. It is frightening parody that this is who the Republican Party is. I mean, look, I really wish that the Republican Party was normal. I wish we could have civil discourse and debate. Frankly, even if that meant Democrats would lose some elections and win some elections, if I thought the Republican Party cared about this country and were an intelligent, responsible party, that's what politics is about. Maybe they have better ideas sometimes than Democrats have better ideas, and it's a battle for ideas and how we help the American people, but that's just not what exists right now. This MAGA Republican Party is engaged in performative fascism. They're a cult that worships Donald Trump. They're a cult that worships Donald Trump. And they go out there and spread these deranged conspiracy theories each and every day. I can think of nothing more anti-American. Something that there's nothing that betrays the values of our country more than that. And I'm sick and tired of those people, those MAGA Republicans, saying they're patriots and that they love this country and going USA, USA. You don't love this country. You know, you just want to do the performative WWE rally. You don't actually care. Your policies hurt this country. The pro-democracy community that supports our institutions, that supports our country, that wants to make our country better, people who are trying to solve problems, like the Democrats you saw in this video, people who are saying, how do we give our military raises? How do we improve the working conditions of our military? How do we improve their salary? Those are people who love America, not these MAGA Republicans. But I'm glad, again, at these hearings, the Democrats are doing really, really well. And they're showcasing who they are. And they're messaging really well. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you for watching. Now hit subscribe. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers. We just passed the million mark. So please subscribe right now. Also, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Also, wherever you get your audio podcast, just search MeidasTouch Podcast and subscribe. All right, while you're at it, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. It's free.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.